Hey there guys, T-shirt booth here, and this is video number 4 So you want to make a Boggle game. In our last video, we made it so you can select a letter, and then you have to select one that's adjacent to that letter. You can't select over here. So we have all that hammered out. But in the Boggle game on the iPhone, let's say you select all these, and then that's not a word, and you want to go back to this one. These three here would disappear, and this would be your selected letter. So we need to create a system that will, track what letters are selected and allow you to go back to one without having to start over. So we're going to do that now. It took me a second to figure it out. I pre-done this before starting to make the video, and now it's pretty solid, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. So the first thing we're going to do is create a game attribute. Hit the plus sign. It's going to be an index attribute. And we're going to call this how many letters selected. Okay, so we want to keep track of how many letters are selected. Now we're going to go into the letters. And I'm going to create an attribute, and it's also going to be an index, and we're going to say, what selection am I? So we're going to number these actors as they're selected. Now we have two rules in our actor here, and they're virtually the same. The first one here basically checks to see if it's touched first, and then this one here checks and see if it's touched after the first one. And normally, if I was making this game for myself, I probably would have found a way to do this in one rule, but just for the sake of ease, to show you guys easily, we're going to do this in the two. So we need to duplicate some of the stuff here. So we're going to, in the first one, we're going to put a change attribute. Before I do that, let's name these, so for future. Pressed first, and this one here will pressed after. There we go, just so we can refer to them later. So we have our change attribute here. We're going to make sure it's at the very top of our rule state, and we're going to say change attribute game how many letters to game how many letters selected plus 1. So if there's nothing selected, you select 1, it's going to change it to 1. If you already have one selected and you touch another one, it's going to change it to 2, and so on. And then we're going to do a change attribute right underneath that one. And we're going to change self dot what selection am I to game how many letters selected. So if this letter was touched third, it's going to change this to 3. So we'll always know what actors were touched in what order. Now, because I have a duplicate rule down here, I need to copy these down. So I'm going to press the Shift button, select both, then I'm going to hit Alt-Option and drag to the top of this rule. So now we have this perfect. So I'm going to shrink that one, and I'm going to shrink that one. Now I'm going to create a rule. I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle here, above these two things here. And I'm going to say when touch is pressed. And as you know, we already have two touches pressed. So to not confuse things, we're going to also say an attribute self used is true. So these ones here are if used is false, we can do these. But if it's already used and you go back and touch it, then these rules will execute. And what we're going to do is we're going to change attribute, and we're going to change game how many letters selected to self what selection am I? So let's say you have 8 letters selected, and then you go back and you hit letter number 4. You're basically going to tell the game that number 4 is now the count for how many letters is selected, which will make number 5, 6, 7, and 8 obsolete. And when we do that, we're also going to need to reestablish what letter is selected. So down here in our first pressed rule, you remember we have the selected spot, the selected X, and the selected Y. Okay. Simply to make it, you could just drag them up in here, but to make it easier, I'm going to show you a trick. Select all 3 by holding the Shift, drag them into your behaviors. Okay. Then it's going to create a grouped behavior. Now you can just drag that group behavior up into here, underneath this one, and now you've just basically copied them. So now in this rule here, we're gonna name this if pressed and used. Okay, so here you should have how many letters selected to self, what selection am I. Then you'll have game dot select spot number to self, what spot am I. Game selected X to self position X. Game selected Y to self position Y. Now we're going to do a little bit of magic. In this hide group here, we're going to put a rule. So I'm going to go to my behaviors, I'm going to go back to standard. I'm going to put a rule in here. And all on its own there. And I'm going to say if attribute self, what selection am I, is greater than game, how many letters selected. So basically, if you select 8 and then you go back and select the 4th one, well, now how many characters are selected is 4. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 have to reset themselves. So that's what we're doing here. So if what selection am I is greater than how many letters selected, we're going to change attribute self used to false, because we want them to be active again. And then we're going to change attribute self, what selection am I, back to 0 because it's not selected. I'm going to turn this off here, this display text here for what letter am I. I'm going to put another display text in here so we can show you what's going down. And we're going to change it to self, what selection am I. I'm going to quickly save this in case it crashes when I preview. Name that 7. So now I'm going to hit preview. And as you can see, all these are 0 because nothing is selected. But I'm going to go ahead and select one. So now that's the one first selected, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. But now let's say I want to go back to number 5. I'll select 5. Instantly, those are gone, back to 0. Now I can go to 2, no problem. And then I can continue going again. I want to go back to 3, so I can go this way. Not a word. Go back to 4. Boom, I got a word. All right, go back to 1, and you're starting where you left off. Simple as that. Pretty powerful. It's an easy little system, but it's really good. And I think we're going to tie this video up now with that. It's a good chunk done. And I'm going to see you guys back in episode 5. Again, if you have any questions, post them in the forums, because even though I'm making these videos pretty much all in a row, I'm only releasing a few a day, just so we can create some kind of pipeline for communication, because I'm sure a lot of you will not really understand what I'm doing or have questions about it. So please post in the forums, and we can talk about it, and I'll see you guys in episode 5.